Just 2 days ago, I got this opportunity to attend a program dedicated to King Prithviraj Saha, the reunifier of this country, under whose leadership modern Nepal was born. Nepal has a long history, by the way. It dates back to just ancient times. It is one of the most ancient countries on planet Earth. But the Saha king, King Prithviraj Saha, just brought the fragmented states of this country, the princely states, if you will, under one umbrella. This at a time when when the Brits had already just made their forays into India, and they were bent on gobbling up this country as well, this country of strategic importance, this country, the gateway to Tibet and beyond. They had those empirical designs, those like bent on subjugating the entire world. They had that ambition, and driven by that ambition, they had made inroads into India and were bent on capturing Nepal as well. Under the leadership of King Prithvinarayan Saha, the subjects of that time, the noblemen, if you will, they just forged a united front and just made the Brits bite the dust. That is history. At that time, also, this country was facing an existential crisis, and this crisis has deepened at the present juncture, at a time when our two neighbors are rising. And these neighbors, they have just made their intent clear. Both the southern and northern neighbors have just made quite clear through their action that they are not satisfied with the scheme of things at present. The southern neighbor, in particular, in the case of Nepal, with its uh, theatrics and as well as some substantial action, has made it quite clear that it is not satisfied with a continent. It is not satisfied even with a continent sized country. So this poses an immediate threat to Nepal. Then comes the northern neighbor. The northern neighbor has a vision. It wants to connect to the South Asian market through Nepal. It wants Nepal to be the link between South Asia and China. So, as the great Prithvinarayan Saha said, Nepal is still, despite those 302 302 years after his birth, Nepal still remains as a yam between two boulders, vulnerable as ever. The West has its designs vis-a-vis Nepal and beyond. It just wants to use Nepal as a launch pad for its designs against a rising China and a rising India. India itself has designs vis-a-vis Nepal. It is quite clear that it does not want increasing Chinese influence in Nepal because that increasing influence will harm its interest vis-a-vis Nepal's water resources. It wants to monopolize those resources. It has been quite clear through like different chapters of history that it wants to capture all of Nepal's water resources, in particular the Mahakali Treaty, the Kosi Treaty, and the Mahakali Treaty, the Kosi Agreement, and the Gandaki Agreement, and other various deals meant to capture Nepal's lifelines, Nepal's rivers, have made it quite clear that it wants to capture all of Nepal's most precious resources, that is, the water resources. So, Nepal obviously is caught in a bind. The situation has never been this difficult. If we are to just forget for the time being the Treaty of Sugauli, the war between the Brits and Nepal for Nepal's survival, times have never been this difficult in the life of this country. So it is quite fitting that Prithvinarayan Saha, the wise king, comes to mind. But Nepal's political parties, by and large, the so called mainstream parties, have almost forgotten King Prithvi and his contributions. They want the king, the unifier of modern Nepal, to be forgotten. They want to forever consign King Prithvi to the books of history. But there are certain forces that have been just uh, at the forefront when it comes to commemorating his contributions to modern Nepal, to the Nepali identity. In this context, should be read a recent program that the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party organized in Kathmandu. The political leadership, the mainstream political parties and their leaders do not have the spine to remember the contributions of the late king, but they had no option, perhaps, but to just take part in the program that the RPP, the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party, had organized, coinciding with the 302nd birth anniversary of King Prithvinarayan Saha just 2 days ago. Interestingly, the Nepali Congress President Sher Bahadur Deuba, CPN UML Chair KP Sharma Oli, and none other than the Prime Minister and the chair of the CPN Mouse Center, Pushpakamal Dahal Prachanda, attended that program. There was a sizable presence of the laity, of the members of the general public at the program. This shows that regardless of their backgrounds, caste, creed, ethnicity, religion, and whatnot, despite all those fault lines, Nepalese have been seeking a unifying figure, a unifying, a larger than life political figure that can just bring unity in our diversity. Who else can that figure be if not King Prithvi? Humankind has definitely has deficiencies. We are the poor copies of divinities, if you will, and King Prithvi may also have had his weaknesses, but when it comes to giving the Nepalese their identity, when it comes to protecting the independence and sovereignty of Nepal, he comes to mind, he comes to the forefront. He is the leader, undisputed leader, doubtlessly, without doubt. People contributed to his campaign for the making of modern Nepal. He led that campaign and people supported that campaign. Obviously, the fraught, divided kingdoms, the kings of the yore, they lost their kingdoms. But it was, this campaign was for the greater good. This campaign war And this campaign was against a marauding force that was bent on conquering the world. King Prithvi came in their way and just protected even China without, if the Brits had managed to get a foothold on Nepal, then China would also have come to increased risk. Chances are that China may also have been invaded by the Brits. But Nepal came in their way like a Himalayan wall, and just Nepal had to cede its territories, large chunks of those territories because of that, ultimately, because his successors could not hold on to that campaign. They could not carry forward that campaign effectively. It was a divided house. The Gurkha Darbar at that time, after his demise, after the demise of his son, able son, Bahadur Shah, was a fraught and a divided house, and his eldest son, Pratap Singh Saha, was no match for his father. He just did not have that, perhaps, the foresight to just keep Nepal as a strong and unified country. This Anglo Nepal War of 1814 1816 forced us to cede a huge swathe of Nepali territories. Some historians point out that Nepal lost one third of what used to be Greater Nepal at that time. So it was a disaster. But somehow we remained as a country despite fighting such a mighty force, the Brits. As I told you earlier, the existential crisis facing this country has never been this serious. Call it a paradox of history. Whenever our two neighbors rise, whenever their fortunes start rising, Nepal finds itself quite vulnerable. And whenever their fortunes are declining, at that time also Nepal becomes quite vulnerable. Nepal forces a deep existential crisis. So it's like between the devil and the deep blue sea. We are in the just vortex of this kind of crisis, and this crisis demands that we remain united as ever. We remain vigilant as ever. We remain extra sensitive toward our security. But this has not been happening. Our lack of foresight, the lack of foresight on the part of Nepal's political leadership and bureaucracy has landed this country into a deeper and deeper crisis. So, what is the way out of this crisis? The way out of this crisis, I think, is to follow on the footsteps of King Prithvi, to just remain aware, to just keep our friends and enemies at arm's length, to mind our business, to just protect our boundaries well, which we have not been doing. Open borders, they pose an existential threat. This at a time when nationalist sentiments have been rising just across the border. A party is, it has made quite clear, the ruling party across the border has made it quite clear that it is not satisfied with the way things are. It wants a more prominent role in the neighborhood and beyond. And it at all, it does not seem satisfied with its geographical boundaries. It wants to exert its influence far and wide. That means Nepal has to be extra sensitive in her dealings with the southern neighbor. It needs to be extra cautious when it comes to dealing with the northern neighbor. And it's like time we just exercised increased caution in our dealings with the West, which has been on the decline for quite some time. When the entire world is in a state of flux, Nepal's existential challenges mount. This means we have to be extra cautious, extra sensitive towards national security, national defense, and whatnot. We need to be extra cautious and do every bit to safeguard our core interests because we face a plethora of challenges at this juncture when the world is changing and quite fast. Let Dibyopadesh, the wise words of King Prithvi, let them be our guiding light. Let's just dig deeper into those words. Let's just divine into the meanings of those words because they are relevant even today. If we are to survive and thrive, we just need to forge a united front. We need to forget, we need to overcome our fault lines and just stand united as ever. Otherwise, there are chances that our national security will be compromised further. Our national unity will weaken and just we may be just vulnerable to all sorts of geopolitical plays, ploys, and conspiracies. Let King Prithvi guide us through these difficult times. Let King Prithvi show the way out of problems to national progress and prosperity. With this, we wish our readers, our watchers, our audiences the very best Prithvi Jayanti. It's an albeit late response. It's in like a late tribute to the unifier of modern Nepal. At the same time, we request you to subscribe to this channel. We have been trying every bit to promote citizen journalism. We just have been trying to be your true voice. We have been trying to raise issues afflicting the nation and the people. So we request you to subscribe to this channel, comment on our presentation, and press that like button. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.